Peace, and welcome. This is going to be an especially fun thing to get into today, and a new one for me. I have two guests speaking on the podcast today, and they represent an organization that has really been transformative for young people in San Francisco and throughout the Bay Area. Aim High, I first heard about. I kind of always heard about it growing up. I didn't have the privilege to go, but I got reconnected in a more intimate way to the organization when I got back to San Francisco and started doing education work in a more focused way. And then Aim High became the model for how I wanted to build Mission Bit, which was the organization that I ran for 4.5 years. Mission Bit is, I think singly my greatest career achievement until I started this podcast. Now I get to talk to great people like these two. So if anybody wanted to know how Mission Bit got to be so dope, I just copy pasted whatever Aim High did. So we're going to learn more about Aim High today. This is the Aim High story, and I have with me the founder of Aim High, Alec, and the director of what's the title, Terrence?
Director of Programs.
Director of Programs, Terrence Riley. I pronounced that right, correct?
Correct, absolutely.
Okay, welcome, Terrence and Alec. I appreciate you being here this morning.
Great to be here.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
I kind of want to get into the story of Aim High, but just for people who just may not have heard, like, what is Aim High?
And so first of all, I'm the co-founder. Another teacher and I started the program in '86. And Aim High is a summer learning program for middle school students in low-income neighborhoods and communities. We started in San Francisco with one campus the summer of '86, 50 kids, rising 7th and 8th graders. We focus on middle school. I'm sure we'll talk more about that choice and why that matters. And I'll fast forward to now 34 years later. Well, what we would have done this summer is we would have had 18 or 19 campuses and close to 2,500 kids across the Bay Area. It's different this summer in this challenging and fragile moment that we're living in. And Terrence and I will talk more about that. But it's a summer learning program. We make a multi-year commitment. It's 5 weeks for kids and typically 6-7 weeks for teachers. And it's a robust mix of academics and activities and college visits and career awareness and family engagement. Whew. How's that? And I'm sure I left out a ton. And that's why we have a podcast, so we can talk about all that.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely get into it because I want to get into a little bit about your upbringing and why you decided, along with the other teacher, to start the organization. But I believe, Terrence, you're an alumni of Aim High. Is that correct?
That's correct. So I went to this small all-Black Christian school in San Francisco called Fellowship Academy. It doesn't exist anymore, but when I
remember Fellowship.
Yeah.
In Bayview. Was it in Bayview?
It was in Bayview, yeah, right by MacArthur Park up there. But when I was in middle school, Alec Lee came to my school and talked to my class about Aim High. And for somebody that, was looking for something different, looking for a challenge, looking to do more academically, it seemed like the perfect fit. And so I went through the program, continued to be a teaching assistant throughout high school, and then came back to work in the central office full-time about 10 years ago.
That sounds like a very mature choice for a middle school kid, though. You didn't have to go kicking and screaming. It was just like, yeah, I want to do it. Like, what was the...
No, not at all. I mean, so I was kind of a bookworm, but for me, learning wasn't fun at that time. I did it for the A's and the 100%. I didn't really do it to gain knowledge or to grow. And so for me, doing Aim High was just another way to check something off, get ready for high school, get ready for college. But then once I got there and saw what the community was, it really opened my eyes and my mind to what learning should be, and that, we are on this quest for our lives to be, these lifelong learners. And that seed was really planted for me in Aim High. But no kicking and screaming. It was really something I was really looking to do and interested in, and wanted to do more than just hang out in the park in the summer.
Before, and I want to kind of get back to Alec, but just tell me a little bit more about how you grew up. Like, so you grew up in San Francisco?
Yeah, so I grew up in the Bayview Hunters Point neighborhood, very tight-knit community. My whole family lived within blocks of each other, like my aunts and cousins and everything. Grew up kind of lower middle class, and went to this Christian school, but my world was very condensed into that neighborhood, and that's kind of all I knew, which was another reason why Aim High was appealing for me, because I was able to go and explore a community and a neighborhood outside of the Bayview Hunters Point area, and so that's kind of what drew me. That's part of the reason that drew me to it, was to get out of like the same 100 people that I knew and saw kind of every day for my whole life.
I grew up in the Fillmore, but I spent a lot of time in Bayview, and I want to ask if you know the so I went to Olivet Baptist Church, and it was the Bailey family.
Oh yeah, I know the Baileys.
Yeah, did you go to school with Asa and Adam and Aaron?
Yeah,
that's why I know fellowship.
Oh, that's real cool.
It was a trip, like, for me coming up, my whole K through 12 experience, because I went to public school. I wasn't fancy going to private school, but my whole upbringing wasn't very diverse. I mean, it was very diverse. It wasn't many white people, is what I want to say. Mm-hmm. It was like mostly people of color. Mm-hmm. Then I grew up, and I went to college, and then it was just like a complete flip. Mm-hmm. But so when you talk about that isolated sort of experience, that's not really the story of San Francisco, though, because if you go around San Francisco is not very diverse. So I had like a very inverted experience. Like, for most San Franciscans, they walk around and it's not very diverse. But the neighborhood I grew up in, it was just only people of color. Mm. And so does that sound like somewhat of what your upbringing was like? Was that?
So no? For me, I was around Black people all the time. My school had one non-Black person. He was a Filipino dude, and he was like the only dude in the neighborhood. But then when I went to Aim High, that's where I got to see more of that diversity that the city offers. And that really prepared me for high school, because my high school experience was completely different than my K through 8 experience. And Aim High, exposing me to like new cultures and new communities. It was a really big, it was something I needed at that time, because it was all Black people.
Where'd you go to high school?
So I went to a boarding school down in Pebble Beach. And so that was, it was all rich white people. And it was a big culture shock and adjustment for me. And, like completely flipped from what I was used to from kindergarten to 8th grade.
What's the name of the school?
It's called the Stevenson School, or Robert Louis Stevenson.
Oh, is it? Yeah, okay. What, did you go through one of the scholarship programs?
Yeah, so there's this program called A Better Chance, yeah.
Yeah, ABC. Like, yeah. I know your whole life story, bro. It's on to Alec. A Better Chance, I heard about A Better Chance when I was at Williams, and a lot of the students of color that came to Williams, that came from neighborhoods, that were lower income neighborhoods, they went to some of the private East Coast colleges, boarding schools through A Better Chance.
Yeah, I wanted to go to the East Coast at first, but my parents were like, if you're going to go to boarding school, you at least have to stay in California. So that's why I ended up there.
They helped you, man. Those winners. Anyway, Alec, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in a mostly upper middle class suburb of St. Louis, Missouri. Okay. So, it's really interesting. Of course, Terrence and I have now known each other for a decade. And so it's interesting to hear the two of you, and, my story's different.
Did you have siblings? Like, what was your sort of home situation like?
Yeah. So mom and dad, brother, sister, very close family. Our neighborhood was lots of friends and tight-knit and close as well. And I went to a pretty amazing school as well. I wouldn't describe it as fancy, but an independent school in the suburbs of St. Louis, and mostly white, almost entirely white. This was also the 1970s, so quite some time ago. But the school had a couple of partnerships with schools in the inner city of St. Louis, and I participated in 2 of those, and that was the eye opener for me, that the world is too unequal. And the other eye opener was, why wasn't the education that I received? Why didn't all kids get that? and and so when I graduated from college, I embarked on the journey to try to address that achievement and opportunity gap.
What brought you to San Francisco?
I followed my girlfriend at the time, and we just celebrated our 33rd anniversary. So it worked out pretty well.
Uh-huh.
It was one of the better choices I made, but she had a job here, and I didn't. But I said, we like each other, and and she asked me to follow her, and I said yes. It was definitely the right decision. But I'd spent 4 summers working in a summer program outside of Detroit called Horizons Upward Bound. And, Stefan, you probably know Upward Bound was started when Lyndon Johnson was president as part of his Great Society initiative. And I fell in love with the program, and I became deeply committed to summer learning and innovation, project-based learning, and inspiring role models. And so those were all the pieces that were kind of in my head when I moved to San Francisco. And I got a teaching job at a high school, and the principal of that school said, listen, if you want to do something in the summer, kind of like Upward Bound, I'll just give you the key to the building and, go for it. And so I wrote a grant to the San Francisco Foundation. I'd never heard of foundations. I had no idea what they were. But I wrote a grant, came up with the name, and they funded us for $25K. And Aim High was off and running in 1986. And a lot of what we created that first summer is still embedded in the program. And we can talk more about that. So that was a little bit of a long-winded.
I have more. It's all good. So we have your wife to thank for Aim High in San Francisco.
Yeah, let me get over here. Want to hear this?
Okay.
Yeah. No, it worked out pretty well. Thank you.
So you came out here with your girlfriend. Now, congratulations on 33 years. I think that there's like a lot about running anything, and you're in a leadership position with the organization, Terrence. And I don't know how your career has sort of shifted and waned since you came into this position, but like the home life and how that affects the work life is just like, it's a very important thing to kind of get into that people don't often talk about. Because starting anything is stressful. And I learned this running Mission Bit, right? And I know Alec, the flow, the ebb and flow of Aim High, like that's kind of the stuff that I want to get into, right? My first time when I was running Mission Bit, we also started with $25K. That's $2,015. In 2015, we got $25K.
Kudos to you.
Than 86. Congratulations on that grant too. That's a lot.
Yeah, we would not have gotten very far on $2,000 in the summer of 86.
So then I had to worry about payroll because now I was like running the organization, and it was I had to kind of raise the money for the salary and everything. How long were you doing your teaching job before you started running Aim High full time?
Gosh, 15 or 16 years.
Okay.
So in fact, I think it was 17 years. In fact, I'm sure it was 17 years. So definitely some multitasking. I mean, Aim High was quite a bit smaller, but it did get to the point where it had to become what I did full time. So I miss teaching, but being full-time Aim High has also been a great journey. And you're absolutely right. Certainly some peaks and valleys and challenging moments. Was there ever a point in Aim High's journey where you thought like, I don't know if we're going to make it? Great question. And I would say the short answer is no. It has been a steady, solid, thoughtful trajectory. But there have been moments. 2008 was a challenging moment for nonprofits. We also took a risk and started a district school, which you may remember, Aim High Academy. That was a 3-year challenge for the organization. We learned a lot, no regrets. So there have been a couple of, I would call them like really, really tough moments, but never any consideration that the organization would close or not make it. And I know that's very real in the nonprofit world. So, and that's a tribute to our team and my colleagues and our trustees, some of whom a lot of really thoughtful, devoted people.
15 to 17 years running it as a teacher, and then you take the leap to go full time, but your life is happening. Like, do you have kids?
Yeah, I have. They're grown-ups. They're 31 and 28, I think. Yeah, okay. They both worked in Aim High, and one is a teacher in Oakland. So they've been part of the journey too. By the way, Terrence's daughter is in her first year of Aim High. So
yeah, I was gonna get into Terrence's family too, because I saw the wedding ring. How long you been married, Terrence?
So we've been married for 7 years, together for like 10, 11 years.
Okay. Did y'all meet at Aim High too? Is that
We met through Aim High.
I was just a shot in the dark question. Okay. So what happened?
We met at a summer learning conference.
Okay. Conference romance.
Yeah, the conference was in Indianapolis, and Terrence was the only one who wanted to go to Indianapolis. So I would say it worked out pretty well.
It worked out great.
Look at this, all these life things happening. So how long you been working at Aim High, Terrence?
So 10 years.
Okay. What were you doing before?
So before Aim High was kind of at a pivot point in my life. Before Aim High, I was in LA. I worked in the movie industry for the first part of my career and just wasn't really feeling fulfilled in the work that I was doing. I've always been a big movie fan, and I thought like that was the dream, to work in the movie industry. But I just wasn't feeling fulfilled. And, I had to do a lot of reflection and looking back on like what that was. And it always came back to like my experience at Aim High and ABC and, other groups that I was a part of growing up. And all those organizations kind of made me the person that I was at that time. And so it's like I wanted to get into education. And so, turned my life around, left LA, moved back up to the Bay, started grad school, got a master's in education. And that's when I started at Aim High.
Where'd you do your undergrad?
USC in LA.
What area of the movie industry were you interested in going into?
My BA is in economics, and so I worked in forecasting and strategic planning. So when a movie comes out, you have to forecast how well it's going to perform. So that's what I was doing.
So you came back up here for grad school?
I came back up here just because I just needed a change in life. Just LA was becoming a bit overwhelming for me. So I came up here to just kind of rethink of what that next step was. Moved in with my parents and just kind of did a lot of praying and thinking about what that next step was. And then I went to grad school shortly after that.
So where'd you go to grad school?
University of the Pacific in Stockton.
Got it. And so you got a master's there, and then you started right after that. You started at Aim High. Is that how?
So I started grad school. I did my first semester. I didn't know like how challenging grad school would be. I didn't even know if I would enjoy it or not. But after I did that first semester, like I was really into it. I was like, this is for me. I made the right decision. I know this is the next part of my life. I also realized I could probably work and do grad school at the same time. And so after I finished my first semester at grad school, I started looking for jobs and saw there was an opening at Aim High. And so I was fortunate enough to get the position. And so for about 1.5 years, I was doing grad school while working at Aim High at the same time.
Yeah, Aim High has been a launch pad for people's careers in education, locally and throughout the country. That was especially satisfying when I was running Mission Bid. There were like college students that were computer science majors, and then they were like, whoa, I like teaching. Like, whoa. And they really connected with the kids. Well, what's that been like for you, Alec, to see like sort of eager, passionate young educators come in and work with Aim High?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's been part of our mission, I mean, literally since that first summer. Uh, Obviously, first and foremost, we're about kids and families and making that 4-year commitment and propelling middle school kids to success. But a very close second is our work with both experienced teachers and aspiring teachers. And you're right, Stefan, it's been, enormously gratifying, I think, for Terrence and Michelle and myself to see those young teachers go on to work in San Francisco Unified and Oakland Unified and charter schools and like-minded nonprofits. The Aim High diaspora. It's very real, and it is it's a distinct, purposeful part of our mission. Of course, your friend Vince Mathews was part of Aim High for many summers, way, way, way back in the early days, and other fantastic school leaders and teachers across the Bay. It's great to see that happen.
Yeah. And for people that don't know, Vince Mathews is the superintendent of the San Francisco Unified School District. He reports to me. We're not friends, because I'm on the board of education. It's jokes. It's a jest. I wanted to get into the students because, like, the first day, there's all this anticipation around the first day, and so for now 33 years, you've had 33 first days of Aim High, or 34.
Yep, that 34? One. Yeah, 34. Oh wait, no, it's 35. 35 summers. Yes, we've had 35 first days.
And so maybe for some of those students, it's their second first day. They know what to expect, but paint a picture of sort of not the typical, but like a student experience, like who they are, what's on their mind, what they see. Like, what does the first day at Aim High look like for a student?
Terrence, do you want to go first on this one, or you want me to? Maybe you could talk about your first day.
Yeah, let's do Terrence, because he has the thing and now he's doing the thing. So then you can fill in, Alec.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty somewhat vividly remember my first day at Aim High. So Aim High, it used to start for students going into their 7th grade, and now it starts for students going into their 6th grade. But I started Aim High the summer before my 8th grade. And so all of the students that were in my class had already been there for a summer before. And so I was joining a little late to the party. And I was very nervous. And obviously, I said I came from a outside neighborhood, so I just didn't know what to expect at all. But as soon as you walk through the doors, even before you walk through the doors, at the front doors, there are students and teachers and, high school interns who are there, and they're just welcoming everybody as they come into the door. And a lot of people give high fives and say, how you doing? Welcome. You're going to have an amazing summer. That existed when I was in Aim High 25 years ago, and it still exists today. And that just kind of feeling of being welcome and accepted and included was really big. And we have a morning circle. And so that's where the whole campus, 100 plus people come together, and they do fun songs and announcements and activities. And they really form that community with each other during those morning circles. And I remember, I sat with my new classmates, and everybody was like, wanted to get to know me and wanted to know my name, where I was from, why I was here. And from that first class, I just felt really welcomed and included and a part of the team. And even though they had formed these bonds with each other a year before, they just accepted me like I was one of them, immediately. And I think most of our students continue to have that, because that's what we want, to give them a place where they can be accepted and be heard and be themselves and just come and not have to worry about, peer pressure, bullying, any of these things that middle school students have to deal with day in and day out. You can just come and be a part of this community, and students, staff, everybody is going to welcome you with open arms right away.
Like, paint a picture of the student body. You said 2,500 students. Who are the types of students that come to Aim High? That
2,500 students is across our 18 sites, and our 18 sites are across the entire Bay Area. So each site looks very different because of those communities in which they are in. But I would say the Aim High student looks the same. They come from environments where, they just want to do something else. They want to be a part of a community. They want a chance to let themselves shine. And so a lot of them are shy. A lot of them don't know what to expect. And we try to kind of help them lower their guards, that first day. But they come with this kind of big-eyed, like, oh, what's happening? Oh, everybody's smiling, everybody's having fun. Like, this is different, this is new, and I don't know anybody here. And it really opens them up and puts their guards down, I would say, really, really quickly, and they're able to establish that community because we are only a 5-week program. We are only a summer program. So this group of students that you're seeing, you're not going to see for another year until next summer. But for those students who have been there in the previous summers, when they come back that next year, like that excitement of seeing those friends you haven't seen in a year, like that is such a cool thing to see as they reconnect with their summer friends. So again, I think, the biggest thing is that students come, some of them reluctant because they don't know what to expect. Some of them excited because they want something new. But as soon as they walk through those doors, they understand like this is different and this is a community.
Anything you want to add to that, Alec?
We talk a lot about serving kids with limited opportunities and unlimited potential. And I think that's a characteristic, whether it's Aim High in the Fruitvale or Chinatown or Bayview. We have a couple rural campuses, one in Napa, one in Tahoe Truckee. But I think Terrence described it well. There is kind of this common characteristic that it's more often than not every time, but more often than not, kids who are kind of looking for something. Or there's a teacher at their school or an assistant principal or a counselor who we consider ourselves a really strong quality partner with San Francisco Unified and Oakland Unified and Richmond and Napa. And so given our long history and reputation, we have teachers and counselors propelling kids into Aim High. And we also really thrive on our school culture, which Terrence knows well, our core values: community, opportunity, respect, and high expectations. The H is silent. And so that school culture of acceptance, of inclusion, of taking risks, that none of that happens by accident. That all happens on purpose, Stevan. And that's something that was part of Aim High at the beginning, but it's only become kind of more deliberate and pronounced over the years. And you asked earlier about, gosh, how are we still in business? And after all these years, and part of it is we've really tried to define what a classroom looks like and what a campus looks like. That's been one of our big accomplishments, I would say, the last 10 or 15 years. And Terrence and a couple of our other colleagues have been a huge part of that.
Yeah, I want to get into that too, because we talked a lot about the some aspects of the program's climate, the feelings that students have, but kids are learning. Like there's learning happening. And so let's get into the academics, the curriculum, and what that looks like, because this isn't just like summer camp where there's arts and crafts and none of that, no knock on any of that, or water sports. This is like class, so
right.
What does that look like?
You want me to go first on this one, Terrence? Yeah. So
school doesn't sound as fun either. School should be this fun, but continue.
Yeah. So every day, kids do math, science, humanities, which is our version of language arts, and then a class called Issues and Choices, which is sort of a legendary part of Aim High. I think I'll let Terrence talk about that. And it's all team teaching, project-based, thematically connected. And then the afternoons are all activities and sports and field trips. I had somebody ask me the other day, so the morning is kind of the learning and the afternoon is fun. And I said, hold on, time out. No, the whole day is fun. And that, that thread of engagement and creativity, it runs through the whole day. And it's very much part of the, quote unquote, academic part of the day. So, that's a typical day and a typical week. I did pause on Issues and Choices, which is a piece of Aim High that I think we're all really proud of. It's been part of Aim High, I guess, for probably at least 20 years. I'll let Terrence talk about that piece. I know, Stevan, you've seen it in action. I know it really resonates for you. But Terrence, go for it.
Yeah, Issues and Choices is a really special class. It's a time for students to really evaluate their lives and their communities, to really look and hear their voice and hear the voices of those around them. We say it's an adolescent development class, but middle school is such a critical point in students' development. And so this class acts as a conduit to help them figure out what are they going to be, like, what is the next step for them. It's where their voice really matters. And even the way we typically set up the classroom, we put it in a circle and we have the students so they can see each other. We have the teachers mixed in there so that it's all just one community together. And so it's really a time for students to explore and to have meaningful conversations and to be vulnerable with one another and to grow.
Having a space to process and talk about community issues, life issues, family dynamics, all those things are, I think, really important to just to learning,
Mm-hmm.
A lot of young people have great ideas too for how they want to see things improved. We're at a time right now where these types of spaces are being created at companies, right? Because they ignored them for like they didn't exist, in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and this whole international protesting around police brutality. It's a trip because, for most people that are sort of in education in urban settings, we've been sort of confronted with a lot of this very frequently for a long time. But a bunch of tech companies are hitting me up about hey, we want to talk about this stuff and we don't know how. They should be talking to Aim High students about how to get these conversations going, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is also something that you're now dealing with this summer, and you're doing it virtually.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot. I just said a lot, but let's get into that, the transition to virtual learning, that we kind of get into some of the current events.
And that was the important piece for us in creating this Aim High at Home program. We are primarily an academic program, and academics, are and will always be important, especially for the demographic of students that we serve. But we came into this summer knowing that this summer would be different, beyond just being virtual, but dealing with deeper rooted community issues, the police brutality that is happening, this global health crisis that we're going through. We know we needed to focus on our students and focus on their well-being, their social and emotional development. And so that was our focus. Academics, definitely, but focusing on the student holistically was something that we really prioritized this summer, which we always do, but I would say more so this summer because we knew that we really needed to give our students a place to process what was happening in the world around them.
So how is that shift taking place? Is it more time in the day? Is it how are you executing on it?
Yeah, so we've built it into more of our classes. So Alec explained we have 4 classes: math, science, humanities, and issues and choices. This summer, we have a STEAM class, we have a book club class, and then we have advisory and issues and choices. And so we're creating more time and more space for those conversations. We're also creating the space within the STEAM class and within the book club class to talk about whatever students want to. The thing that we're missing with being in person is having those kind of one-off conversations. So we have 2 teachers in every classroom. And so at times, if you need to take one student and one teacher, go outside and have a meaningful conversation, that's easy to facilitate, but that's a little bit more difficult in this virtual space. But we do, fortunately, through the medium that we have breakout rooms. And so we can have a student and a teacher step aside virtually. And, we make that clear to our students. Like, if you need a pause, if you need to check in for a minute, we want to give you that opportunity to be able to do that. So again, it's just about creating the space so that our students feel comfortable in doing that, and just making sure that that they're heard in doing that.
You want to add anything to that, Alec?
I mean, you're on the school board. And by the way, thank you for your leadership. But I'm sure you know that the trauma of the last 3 or 4 months, it's very real. When we made the pivot, when we heard from you and others that buildings would not be open this spring or summer, we decided, as Terrence said, what do we want to prioritize? What really, really matters this summer? And for me, the summer will be successful if kids are happy and engaged, and if they feel good about connecting with their friends, if they've done some fun activities, if they feel love and connection. That will be a successful Aim High summer. And by the way, I probably don't need to tell you, it's hard to measure, but we'll try. And we're 8 days into it, and we're learning a ton, and we feel pretty positive. The early returns are, it's working in this, really fragile moment.
Yeah, you do a great job at giving me things to hand off into also, because we should talk about measurements. But also, I just like, honestly, it's not the same, obviously, like virtual learning.
It's not the same.
It's not the same. And it's not the same for families. It's like, there are the real public health issues, but then all of the long-term unforeseen consequences on our mental health, being inside as long for kids, right?
Sure.
That need energy releases. And a lot of people have been making adjustments, but it's rough. It's rough to be in this space right now. And like, educators have always done their best, the best they could with what they got,
right,
for the kids in front of them. And so I know you all have followed suit, but it's just like, I just have to say, it's rough. It's not the same.
It's not the same. And I can't imagine the pressure you're under, you and Vince and others, trying to figure out what school's going to look like. And so I want you to know, something that Terrence and the program team, all of Aim High, we're prioritizing is what we're calling Beyond Aim High, which is, we have our 5-week summer program that's going to come to an end at the end of July. What can we do to support you and the school district and Oakland and Richmond when Aim High kids return, either fully return or partially return? So we're thinking creatively around how we can stretch Aim High in this unprecedented moment. We have to, right? And we're committed to stretching and supporting beyond the summer. So that's something you can count on.
Right on. I appreciate that. In terms of the measurements, like let's talk about the impact that people get in terms of the academics. Like, what does participating in Aim High look like in terms of student life outcomes, academic outcomes?
I think we can kind of tag team a little. Terrence and I have an amazing colleague, Shelka Popras. She joined Aim High about a decade ago, and she was really charged with helping us get a handle on data and measurement. We do it for 2 reasons. How do we relentlessly get better? And then, as you know, Stefan, we have people who invest in us, and they want to know that investment is having outcomes. And so we have a wide array of measurements, both qualitative and quantitative, growth in math and reading, 21st century learning skills, exposure to role models. We measure just about anything and everything. And we're really focused on successful transition from middle school to high school. But we also track our kids through high school. We track high school graduation and college matriculation. Our kids graduate in the 97, 98% range, and then go on to college, 2 and 4 year college in the 95, 96% range. That's all important too. But what's most important is, how does Aim High relentlessly get better year after year? And that's the primary purpose of data. So it's been a great part of our story and legacy. Terrence, what did I forget around that?
No, I mean, I think you said it well. We are an academic organization, and we are an organization that loves feedback. And so we are continuing to try to improve. And a benefit that we have is that we have, 10 months of the year to prepare for this, 2-month program. And so we can really nail in what we want and how we want this program to benefit our students, and be really laser focused on that. And so I think because we've been doing it for 35 years, we've nailed it in, and we continue to try to get better, to have our students be engaged, to learn and to grow. 5 weeks goes by really quickly, but we do our best to make sure that they come out the end of the summer, academically better than they came in. And that's really important to us.
Typically experience or 35 years should mean better quality, but a person that oversees a public education system, that's not always the case. It's not always the case that we see improved outcomes. And so I think it has to be also a reflection of leadership and the willingness to look at yourself honestly.
Sure.
And when students are at the center of that, it's much easier to do. So kudos to a commitment to continually get better and innovation. There's this thing I really want to touch on before we close out, related to, I guess the easy way to say it is the business of nonprofits. But nonprofits cost money, and there are a lot of them. But the lifespan and the growth of an organization is not the same. Like, we all heard of the Red Cross, but like, why does the Red Cross make so much money? Like, I never heard of a success measure related to the Red Cross, And me knowing the nuts and bolts of trying to raise enough to make payroll and like do all of this. Aim High has a very wide network of support, and from 30 students, or was it 50 to start, or 30? 50?
50, yeah.
50 to 2,500, you raising some money pretty well. So I know you wouldn't say it like that, but like Aim High is like they aiming high, and people are gathering around to support the vision of the organization. So like, what is the Aim High approach to fundraising?
Well, let's see. I sometimes like to think in threes, so let's see if I can do three here. Number one, we're filling a distinct and much needed niche, and that's summer and middle school, and doing it in an innovative way, in a way which we're always trying to look at the needs of kids and families and get better. Number two, and I think you and I talked about this in the Aim High office once, we've gotten pretty good, obviously, at making the case that what we do matters. And that goes back to the unique niche we fill. So summer and middle school and innovation, et cetera. And then I'd say the third piece is we've gotten, I would say, very good at engaging communities across the Bay Area around our work, around why it matters, around giving people opportunities to see us in action, to contribute ideas, to help us grow and flourish. We started something called our Young Leaders Board a couple of years ago, and that really vastly exceeded expectations. We've started an ambassador council. So it's all, Stevan, comes back to engagement and making the case and doing something that really matters and makes a difference.
You're making it sound so easy, though.
Oh my God. Hey, check this out. Look at I have a head full of gray hair. It's, when you get down to it, it's also a crazy way to sustain organizations that are just so critical to the health and well-being and success of young people and vulnerable young people. It's a crazy, insane way, but it is the way. It's the way our society has chosen to fund organizations like yours and ours and College Track and Boys and Girls Club. it's the way we do it. So we have to figure out how to work within that system, until a more sustainable way comes along. And that is definitely not happening right now. Let's cross our fingers for the future.
Yeah, Aim High is free to all families, and if people are interested, and they can kind of check out the Aim High website to see the long list of the very, very long list of foundation, family, and company support. I was at the last Aim High gala, and like Ben and Jerry's gives to Aim High. It's kind of like, they have this. I mean, just the spectrum is very vast, and so sometimes I quote rappers.
Go for it.
Rapper, his name is 2 Chainz, and 2 Chainz has his line. He says, "We in the same league, but we don't ball the same." And so for somebody that was, for people that like had to lead an organization, this is the stuff that you have to worry about. For everyone else so other people don't have to. Kids ain't got to worry about it. People that showing up to work don't have to worry about it. But to have a relentless focus on telling the Aim High story, following up, and getting people involved, that's just not easy. And so you don't have to say it, but I just don't think it would be wrong for me to, in this interview, not talk about, like, there's some serious relentless outreach and effective outreach that's happening to keep this organization and growing. So that's,
and let me say it is a team effort across our HQ, our site directors, trustees, young leaders. It is absolutely a team effort, and a privilege to be part of that team.
So if someone isn't convinced yet, Terrence, about why to send their kids to Aim High, or all of my young children listeners, because there are many young children listeners, but imagine, somebody's listening on the way to work and they haven't yet heard of Aim High. Like, why should a family send their child to Aim High?
I mean, Aim High is different than anything you've ever experienced before, and hopefully we have, presented that well in this interview. But also, you can't really understand it until you experience it yourself, which is, why in a typical summer we have these things called visiting days, and so we let our donors come in and see Aim High in action, because that's the only way you're going to see, what we call the Aim High magic. But it's a chance for students to really discover who they are, find their voice, be able to gain this love of learning, because once you come to Aim High, I guarantee you will gain a love of learning, and you will want to do better for yourself and your community.
Any other reasons you want to add, Alec? That was beautiful, Terrence.
Well, I'll say I'm very thankful that I went to Fellowship Academy that day. I still remember that scruffy little courtyard. Do you remember that, Terrence?
Yeah,
and I do remember going into classes, and a very dynamic leader. That was a really good day for Aim High, to connect with Terrence and some of his classmates who came to Aim High. And it's been a real joy and privilege, Stefan, to be connected to you. And so I didn't answer your question. That happens on podcasts, right? Occasionally.
People say whatever they want. It's
but I will say, for the kids out there who are listening, we look forward to having you potentially be part of Aim High next summer. It's a game changer and a life changer. It's unbelievably fun and joyful. We look forward to being back in person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, Aim High has definitely established itself as one of the most trusted youth serving organizations in the Bay Area. It's interwoven into the life experiences of countless young people and families. And it's a Bay Area institution that I hope kids' generations in the future will have an opportunity to enjoy. So thank you for sharing the Aim High story. I appreciate your time this lovely, lovely quarantined afternoon. How can they check out more about Aim High? What's the best way to get a hold of somebody, to look at the website? What's the ways to reach out?
Yeah, go to the website, and we're, as an organization, super, super responsive. So Right, Terrence? That's the best place. Yeah.
Yeah, our website, aimhigh.org. You can find out, a lot about us through there. And then I think we're on all social media at the Aim High program. So there as well.
All right. That concludes our discussion. I appreciate you all again for taking the time to share the Aim High story. Peace, and we out.